We could pass these out. Is that going? That one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yofi. Okay. Shavua Tov, everybody. We continue to learn the month of Adar, the last week of Adar. Leilui Nishmas Bas Yefega Bas Yisrael. Leilui Nishmas Levi Ben Yosef. Leilui Nishmas Friedesina Bas Yitzchak. And for the Refuah Shlema of Shlomo Reuven Ben Hinda. The week is sponsored by Yaakov and Alyssa Greenberg, in memory of Yaakov Zaidi, Yecheskel Ben Betzalel Halevi, Letzal, Helene and David Brenner, in memory of David's father, Yitzchak Ben Nachman, anonymously, L'Refuah Shlema of Yehudis Bas Dan Yaroni, and by Daniel Cohn in honor of Leah Cohn, Rina Bat Avram Yitzchak. She should be blessed with a happy birthday and to continue to enjoying the shiurim in good health and gladness of heart until Ad Me'ava Esrim, from her loving husband and kids. Smart husband. Smart husband. Okay. So today we're going to be learning something that I've always been puzzled by, because it's something that's very unclear, and it's not something that we were taught of when we were younger, when we were speaking about Mashiach. But then we get older, and then we have this whole concept that's called Mashiach ben Yosef. The two Mashiachs, Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Now, like many things regarding the concept of Mashiach, there's many things here that are not, they weren't brought down clearly in Chazal. They kind of were left like just wondering, like, okay. And the Rambam gives us a lot of help with certain criterias, certain details, but there's still some kind of like, and it has to be like this, obviously, because we're talking about Mashiach here. There's still this like big wonderment surrounding the whole concept, and bifrat surrounding Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. The concept of two Mashiachs. Does anyone here remember when they first heard about that they heard the concept Mashiach ben Yosef, and you're like, well, I think the teacher got it wrong? And they said it wrong, yeah?
Right? What it had to do with the Goyim. Like, who got it first?
It's a very interesting thing. When we were kids, we said, we want Mashiach now. No one said to us, David or Yosef. No one said that, right? We want Mashiach now. Why are you asking me? Why do you have to bring someone else into the picture? Why can't one thing just be simple and clear? Why this now also, this Indian has to also add a layer of what's going on over here? So we're going to see something beautiful. We're going to see our own lives over here in the piece that we're going to be learning today about Shnei HaMeshichim. So he says like this, Rabbi Menachem Brod says like this, K'shomrim Mashiach, so don't be confused. When we say Mashiach, we want Mashiach now, yes, mitkavnim LaMashiach ben David, שיחזיר את מלכות דוד ויתקן את העולם כולו, that he will restore the kingdom of David and also fix the whole world. על כך אנו מתפללים 3 פעמים ביום. And this is what we're davening for 3 times a day. When we say, Et Semach David Avdecha Mehera Tatzmiach. That's Mashiach ben David. Ze HaMashiach shekulanu metzapim lebo'o. This is the Mashiach that we're all anticipating his arrival. Aval, the problem that we have, not problem, but the point of today's shir is, Batalmud, Bamidrashim, Ubazohar, Niskar Mashiach Sheni, Mashiach ben Yosef. When you look through the Gemaras, when you look at it in the Midrash, you look at the Zohar HaKadosh, there's this other character here that's called Mashiach ben Yosef. What are we going to do about this? Al pi HaMekorot halalu, Mashiach ben Yosef yofia lifnei Mashiach ben David. According to these sources, if you see footnote 108, based on the Abarbanel for Yecheskel, and also a Sicha of the Rebbe, Likutei Sichos, we see that Mashiach ben Yosef will be a person that will appear before Mashiach ben David. Ve'yeh melech al kol Yisrael, he'll be a king over all of Israel. Ulam, and this is where it gets really interesting, hu yehareg b'idei umot ha'olam. He'll be killed by the nations of the world. Mashiach ben Yosef. Acharav yimloch al Yisrael Mashiach ben David, ve'hu yavi et ha'geula ha'shlema. After him, after he is killed, then Mashiach ben David will come and reign over the whole world. The obvious question is, that we all have, according to this, did this happen already? And if it didn't, is there any way out of it? Zot omeret. If it happened already, let us be clear that it happened already, that there was a figure called Mashiach ben Yosef, and he was killed by the nations of the world, and now we're ready to go straight to Mashiach ben David. If it didn't happen, so how do I daven, if the only way to get to Mashiach ben David is by the death, by the murder of Mashiach ben Yosef, how do I reconcile that? That's a very strange thing to daven for. It may mess up my tefillahs a little bit, no? Please, send Mashiach ben David. And, and you whisper, and then just have Mashiach ben Yosef come really fast, and just like, let it happen really fast. But Gemara, let's go right to Mashiach ben David. It's very interesting. How are we gonna make shalom between the two? So now in the Gemara in Masechta Sukkah, yesh de'ah shemefareshet et pasuk. There's a pasuk in Zechariah that says v'safda haaretz mishpachot mishpachot, that the land will be eulogizing families after families and families will be eulogizing. Who will they be eulogizing? The Gemara says al Mashiach ben Yosef sheneherag. It'll be felt throughout the land, throughout the country, throughout the people. Ba'emshech, what will be felt? Mashiach ben Yosef's murder, his falling, his being killed, his death, will have a tremendous impact and effect on families and families and families. It'll really strike a chord by many, many, many people. But the Gemara continues and it says like this. בהמשך הגמרא אומרת שהקדוש ברוך הוא אומר למשיח בן דוד, שאל ממני ואתנה גויים נחלתך. It's a pasuk from Tehillim. It says that Hashem tells Mashiach ben David, just ask from me, and I will give, I will give other nations, I will give you their nachala. I will give your nachala to what you're asking for. Next page. כשהמשיח רואה את משיח ben Yosef שנהרג, but then Mashiach ben David, he sees Mashiach ben Yosef being killed, הוא אומר לקדוש ברוך הוא, ריבונו של עולם, there's only one thing I'm asking from you. This title is a heavy title, this Mashiach business. For this guy that had the title was killed. I'm only asking you for one thing. Let me stay alive. I don't want that to be my destiny, my fate as well. איני מבקש ממך אלא חיים. Just asking you for life. כאן אנו מוצאים התייחסות ברורה ומפורשת למשיח בן יוסף. And here in this Gemara we see a clear calling out, speaking about this concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, that he's killed. Ve'ilu Mashiach ben David nishar b'chaim, and this other, right, Mashiach ben David, he stays alive.
Question.
Yeah.
When we spoke about that Mashiach is human, we're talking about Ben David.
Yes.
So maybe Ben Yosef could be a concept.
A concept isn't killed.
No, meaning more than one person.
Oh, it will be addressed. It'll be addressed.
I'm sure we're all
Yeah,
thinking this.
we're all thinking, yeah.
Come on.
It'll definitely, I know, and that's a great, thinking very sharp, all of you are, because that's really a way for us to go about this, has to be thinking like that. He's going to address it, nachon.
We can address what his purpose is.
Yeah, sure. But I just want to reiterate over here is that this shouldn't start messing you up in your mind when you're davening for Mashiach and you're wondering which one you're davening for. The Mashiach that we're davening for, Mashiach ben David, alive, person, forever, fixing the world, Malchut, Kibbutz Galuyot, Beit HaMikdash, that's not Mashiach ben Yosef's inyan. What is, we'll see. Okay, now, and this is so beautiful. I say this in Rosh Hashanah. Tfilat Chana is davening, מסתיימת בפסוק, וייתן עוז למלכו וירם קרן משיחו. That's a pasuk from Shmuel Aleph. It says that he will give strength to his king, and he will rise up the horn of his Mashiach. What is this referring to? בפסוק הזה נרמזו שני המשיחים. So in this pasuk, both Mashiachs are alluded to in this pasuk. How? V'iten oz lemalko, that's referring to Mashiach ben Yosef. V'chelko hasheni shel hapasuk v'yarem keren meshicho, Ze Mashiach ben David. That's referring to Mashiach ben David, and that's based, as you see in footnote 113, based on how the Gaon of Vilna understands this pasuk. Ve'yiten oz. Gotta listen to Rabbi Avram Aryeh Trugman. He has a great song with this. He has a great nigun with these words. Really beautiful. Find it on one of his many beautiful albums. Ve'yiten oz lemalko ve'yarem keren mishicho. Ve'yarem keren mishicho. That's referring to Mashiach ben David. Those are a lot of different sources, different references. But now let's get back to what was raised a second ago by Zahava and others. Since things are so unclear in Hasidus, they try to bring. Some people say Hasidus just makes things even more, more deep. That for some people it makes it even more unclear. Here we're actually going to get to, I believe, a very clear understanding of the role of these two Mashiachs and Be'emet, the question of where is this happened already in our generation? What are we experiencing right now? So he continues, and he says like this, exactly like we said before, Dvarim rabim be'inyanei ha'geula lo nuschu nisuach berur u'meforash. A lot of things. Perhaps this is the reason why we weren't taught so much about Mashiach when we were kids, or adults for that sake. Why? Because so many different concepts that have to do with the coming of Mashiach, they were left mamash in the air. They were left unclear by Chazal, right? They're not barur. It's not so clear. Harambam kava klal gadol. The Rambam in Hilchos Melachim said like this: Shekol advarim ha'ele, all these things regarding Mashiach, lo yeda adam ech yiyu ad sheyiyu. On the one hand, that's a very comforting statement. On the other hand, it leaves you very restless. Why is it comforting? Because what the Rambam say? No one will know how it all unfolds until you know, until it unfolds. So is that comforting, or does that leave you restless? Both. It's mamash both. It doesn't really. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it doesn't. But this statement from the Rambam is very interesting. You won't know until you know. Shkoyach. Thank you. So what am I going to do with that? I don't know. You know, when we asked advice from parents or whatever about marriage or about raising children, oh, sweetie, you'll know when you know. You won't know until you know. Okay. But I want to prepare. I want to be very clear. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that with the real things in life. And it's true. The most real things in life, you can have all the hachanas in the world, all the preparation in the world, but until you're going through the experience of it, you don't really know the depth of what you're dealing with. So what's the most real thing in the world? Geula. So of course, it won't be crystal clear until we know and it becomes crystal clear. Does that leave us comforted or restless? Some days yes, some days no. Mamash kacha. That's our life. Next line, next word. Yesh dvarim sheugderu ba'alacha bileshon brura u'mefureshet. Now there are things that were clearly explained to us in the halacha with very clear lashon. Lemashal barambam, where like we saw many of our shiurim, the Rambam has given us clear instructions and a description of Mashiach and what will happen and what won't happen. And we know those things. But regarding all these other things, regarding this concept of the Geula and Mashiach, אין בכוחנו לדעת מה נאמר כמשל וכדימוי, ומה אכן אמור להתקיים בצורה ממשית במציאות הגשמית. We're not sure. What are parables? What are illustrations? What are visualizations? And what is actually going to be tachlis happening in front of our eyes? We're not sure. Although our generation has definitely been witnessing something that for many years was a visualization, and was an imagination, and was a mashal. And what's that? Kibbutz Galuyot, the ingathering of the exiles. Meaning that is a thing. We have to stop for a second. We have to stop every single day and realize, wait a second. This is very, very, the fact that we're sitting here around the table in Gush Etzion, between Yerushalayim and Hebron, and we're learning about Mashiach, is wild. I know it's hard to tap into that because that's just nature. Our habitual beings, that's just nature. But the fact that this is what we're doing right now definitely falls under the category of you'll know when you know. You know what I mean? You'll know when you know. But when you didn't know, you really didn't know. You really couldn't feel it. That makes this situation that much more puzzling as well. Because if this is supposed to be Geula and the footsteps of Mashiach, fill in the blank. Huh?
We're almost there.
That almost is like a very long A-L-M-O-S. It's a very long word, you know. So this is why it's important to always remember that there are certain aspects that Be'emet were brought down clearly in the halacha. We're really working with Hilchos Malachim of the Rambam for all these issues, but there's a whole other world that this almost there, nachon. We're on our way to there, but one of them to point out is that the Yid that lived in some shtetl in God knows where, in Hungary or in I don't know where, Czechoslovakia, or in some shul in Iran, or I don't know where, and the notion of that one of the things of Mashiach coming is the ingathering of exiles, that millions of Jews in the course of 1 century, millions of Jews would return back home and set their roots here and build things up. For thousands of years, that seemed as impossible as, like, right now, us going and building the Beis HaMikdash. Just as impossible. It's important to put these things in the front of our heart. Changes our days, changes our experiences, changes our meaning, changes our relationship to things. Nachon makes it, on the one hand, that much more burning in the heart that how could it be that if this happened, there's still so much limbo and question marks and wondering and concealment? That's a very good question. It is. But it doesn't negate the fact that a huge chunk of Mashiach's job has begun to happen, which is the ingathering of the exiles. Okay.
And 2 seconds later, Harav, I'm taking it for granted. And then I have to roll back and say, wow.
Nachon. So again, and we're in the third line of this fourth line of the third paragraph. Now he says like this, Mashiach ben Yosef eino niskar klal barambam. This figure we were learning about today, he's not mentioned at all in the Rambam. ולכן דמותו נשארת לוטה בערפל במידה מרובה. The reason you didn't learn about him is because he's this figure that's, you know what lota ba'arafel means? I know arafel is fog, right? Lote ba'arafel, it's like withering away in the fog. That's to a certain extent, and that's why this person, this figure, there was no text for him. You can't say, okay, let's learn today about Mashiach ben Yosef. Let's read all the sources. It would be like going to the Museum of the History of Palestine. There's nothing in there, right? It's the same thing. There's nothing really you could do it besides squeezing out certain barbanels and stuff like this. And manasotito. So he says like this. Now he continues with one of the Gaonim of all Gaonim, someone that I remember, I think I was still struck with trauma from my Bagrut that I had to learn about Rabbi Sadia Gaon, and therefore I'm still trying to push that rebellion away and open my heart again to Rabbi Sadia Gaon at Tzaddik. So he says like this in his Sefer Emunos V'Deos, Ma'amar Geula. Rabbi Sadia Gaon kovea ki en hechrech shemashiach ben Yosef achen yavo b'poal. What does he say? This is fascinating, and it kind of answers your question. He says Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't necessarily have to be someone that shows up on the scene. Ela ma? Hadavar talui ba'am Yisrael. It's dependent on us. What does that mean? His showing up on the scene is dependent on us. How? Imam Yisrael yashuv b'tshuva. If we get our acts together, yitgale miyad Mashiach ben David. ולא יהיה צורך במלחמות ובפעולתו של משיח ben Yosef. Very, very strong words, Rabbi Sadia Gaon. It's true, there is this potential person, this figure, that he will show up based on where you're at, Yidden. That's what he's saying over here. Gam im yofiya az Mashiach ben Yosef, and then he says, and don't worry, even if you do proper tshuva, Am Yisrael wakes up. There's a wave of enthusiasm. There's really a cleansing of our wrongdoing, v'chulei. So he says over here, even then, if this person, Mashiach ben Yosef, shows up on the scene, don't worry, he's not going to start wars and get killed. Hu lo yeh ela shlicho shel Mashiach ben David v'yachin lo et haderech. He'll simply be the messenger, the emissary of Mashiach ben David, and he will just prepare the way for Mashiach ben David to do what he's got to do in a more firm and clear way. So Rabbi Sadia Gaon is saying, it does exist, this person does exist, however, his arrival and the manner in which he shows up is really dependent on where you're at. It's almost to say, like, if you don't get it together, he's going to have to come, he's going to have to wage wars, and he's going to have to get killed. No pressure. That's what he's saying. That's what Rabbi Sadia Gaon is saying. No pressure. If you're okay with that. But I know you're not okay with that. So, according to Rabbi Sadia Gaon, part of our job before Mashiach ben David comes is to make sure that Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't have to arrive in the manner that we learned of before. That's Rabbi Sadia Gaon. There's others though. Bottom paragraph. Yesh shepirshu es inyano shel Mashiach ben Yosef b'mashmaut rechava yoter. There are those that took this concept of Mashiach ben Yosef and widened it out very much. Ve'al pia hu mechuvan lechol hatzadikim umanigei Yisrael shemetu al kiddush Hashem b'tkufat hagalut. Kol ele hareim bechinas Mashiach ben Yosef sheneherag. I think we've covered that one. Everyone understands what this last paragraph? Esty? Where you're at? Ken? Maskima? Yesh V? Yesh bo V. Yes. He said over here that there's a whole other accepted notion of Mashiach ben Yosef as a person that all the tzaddikim in all the generations that have ever been killed al Kiddush Hashem, they are the aspect, they fall under the Bechina of Mashiach ben Yosef, Sheneherag. Okay. And we continue over here. This is brought down by the Sachot Shavu Rebbe, the Shem Shmuel, the next page. Al pi masoret shel Talmidei HaBaal Shem Tov. How did the students of the Baal Shem Tov understand this? They said, Orech HaGalut ve'arsonot shir'u le'am Yisrael hemiru et milchemet Gog uMagog ve'et moto shel Mashiach ben Yosef ולכן המאורעות האלו כבר לא התרחשו, as you see in footnote 117, that the Rebbe speaks about this as well, as you see, והעיקר, קיום כל עניינים אלו הפועל ממש, ביאס משיח בן יוסף תכף מיד, ותכף ומיד לאחרי זה ביאס משיח בן דוד. The Rebbe goes to explain thoroughly over here that whatever we went through, that was it. Like now it's just about greeting Mashiach, but the big Shoah, Chalila types of catastrophes and galuyot like that. No. That we're done with. But what the Baal Shem Tov students basically said is that the length of the galus and all the tragedies that have happened to us, he uses the word here, hemiru. You know what that means? It's like hamara. Yeah, there's a better word. We do that with money, right? Hamara.
No, like meaning it was supposed to be one thing,
but it flipped over to something else. Nachon. It was flipped over, all the Melchemet Magog uMagog and Mashiach ben Yosef's death. That all happened already. So the reason, let's just talk about this for a second. The reason why you and I today, in our today's day and age, feel that Yalla Igi Azman Geulatchem. Aaron Razel had a very big hit when he was earlier on the scene. I felt so old. He just did like a 25th anniversary of one of his first albums. Like, there's no way that was only 5 years old. It's not 25 years old. So he had a beautiful song, Higi Azman HaGeula, if you remember it. Higi Azman HaGeula, Higi Azman HaGeula. No one sang that. before the Shoah. Like, these were not songs that anyone sang. And like we said many times in Shir, remember Yom HaShoah last year, or 2 years ago, I was listening on the radio. They were interviewing a Chabadnik that was explaining that when a Yid sang Ani Mamin when he was in Treblinka, or when he was in Auschwitz, when he was in Majdanek, what he was really davening for was, get me out of here. Today, when a Yid says Ani Mamin, and that's fine, it's more than fine. Today, when we sing Ani Mamin B'Emunah Shlema, we have to make sure that we're not just saying to Hashem, get us out of this current mess. It's got to be the whole deal. You know, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a harsh word from the Frierdiker Rebbe. I connected very much. The Frierdiker Rebbe was very concerned with the rise of Zionism in the religious circles because he says, like, "Em mechapsim la'achlif Mashiach besukaria." Like, don't confuse what's going on with this candy called, you know, Jewish sovereignty, the possibility of having a Jewish state. Do not exchange that. Bless you. Do not exchange that for what you've been davening for all these years. Now, of course, in the religious Zionist circles, the explanations are very deep and thorough, and to understand this deeper, it's not just learning Rav Kook, but also like his students and his son's students. Rav Drukman has a lot of very important ma'amarim on the Inyan. We learned some of them a few years ago in the summer. But however you want to understand it, is that we're in a place in history where we really do believe in this last explanation of the character of Mashiach ben Yosef. We really believe in this last description that all the years of suffering and catastrophes were exchanged, right? That was ki'ilu, whatever Mashiach ben Yosef, whoever he was, and what he had to go through and what he has to do, that was exchanged through all the suffering we have, and now we're ready to go straight to Mashiach ben David. We really do believe that. We really do feel that. Like, what else is needed in order to have this entity come before us? So we saw here three different opinions. Rabbi Sadia Gaon explains that it was based on us, his arrival, and the manner in which he would come is really based on us getting our acts together. The other one that we saw right afterwards what the Rav Brad brings down is that all the tzaddikim that ever died, al Kiddush Hashem, they embody the character of Mashiach ben Yosef. And the third one is based on the Tzachot Shavar Rebbe, the Shem Yishmuel said in the name of the Baal Shem Tov and his students, was that everything we've gone through already is kind of this exchange for what Mashiach ben Yosef is, what he has to go through, and now we're ready to go right there to Mashiach ben David. Right? If you look at the last line, the end of the last line we just read, it's very comforting. V'lachen hamera'ot ha'ele kvar lo yitrachashu. These things won't ever happen again. And of course, it's comforting, but in the back of our minds, we have a very big problem. Why? Because we're learning this post Simchas Torah, Tafshin Pei Daled. We're learning these words post October 7th. And that's a very, very alarming wake-up call to say, wait a second, you said it won't, we said it won't happen. Nothing like that will happen again, right? And you have to remember that the original Rebbe and a lot of the tzaddikim said that right before Mashiach comes, things will be so confusing in this world. All the Torah you ever learned won't make sense to you. All the tefillahs you ever davened will be standing in a place of suffix in your heart, whether they were ever heard or accepted. Everything. He calls this the last 3 hours. We say on Hoshana Rabbah, Hoshana Shalosh Sha'os Hoshana. These last 3 hours, when absolutely everything in the world will come back to you as a suffix. Everything you hold dear to you. And I think that for many of us, the anger we have after October 7th, which is basically the creation of a Chilul Hashem. A Chilul Hashem is a reality where an enemy creates a suffix in the Hashgacha of Hashem. That's called a Chilul Hashem. What's the counter of that? A Kiddush Hashem. What's a Kiddush Hashem? The removal of all doubts. The removal of all of it. And restoring back the notion that we haven't gone anywhere. This thing, what the enemies tried to do was to really detach us from our thousands of years of Masorah and believing and knowing that everything will be good, v'chule, v'chule. It just means that now we have to go back to whatever we were busy doing and do it 1,000,000 times deeper, better, stronger, closer. Everything has to be deeper. Relationships have to be deeper. Learning Torah has to be deeper. Shabbos has to be deeper. Everything has to be pashut me'od, closer to what it's about. Everything in life. I was saying on Friday that I had this Mindy was there to be at a wedding of a boy actually that grew up here in Efrat. Where's she from? The Kala? Moza. What a beautiful, cute couple. It's a big schus to marry them off. It's also strange. These Friday afternoon weddings. It's like it used to be, you know. That's how weddings used to be. It used to be Friday afternoons and go into Shabbos. The only difference was that when you went to the wedding, you stayed in that area for Shabbos, Sunday, Monday. You didn't have to go anywhere else afterwards. And when I came home, I felt that like, if before October 7th we went to a wedding and we were like really happy for the couple and whatnot, so I think that like now when we go to weddings, we have to be infinitely more happier for the simcha of the chassan and kala. It's not just that we know how to be more in pain when other people are in pain. That's avada, to feel other people's pain. But to go weiter with simchas as well, just has to be part of the way that part of our national awakening. Mamish being the simcha with people even stronger and better and deeper. And Baruch Hashem, in this shul, there's been like this flow of births and shalom zachars and baby namings, and it's very, very special. So we should just take as many opportunities as we can and make it that much more meaningful. So we end off over here with the Maharal, which is so weird because just on Shabbos, again, I said I've been seeing the Maharal. It's not that I've been learning the Maharal inside, but it's coming at me from all directions. It's a simon. I used to have a chavrusa with Ari Erdfarb and the Maharal. I think I have to go back to it now. The Maharal of Prague. Mamish, just on Shabbos, I was reading a whole story of the Lubavitcher Rebbe with Rav Yitzchak Hutner, the Pachad Yitzchak, who was one of the greatest Talmidim of the Maharal, and that explained the Maharal in such a unique and strong way, the Maharal. Long story, I just keep on seeing it from everyone else. We said on Shabbos also, Torah from the Maharal, that Esther Amalka was the one that basically established shuls when she said to Mordechai Yehudi, Lech knos et kol ha-Yehudim. So she was the one that really, until Esther Amalka, we had the Beis HaMikdash, right? But then we went into this mini galus over there, because Purim is between Beit HaMikdash HaRishon and Beit HaMikdash HaSheni, bless you. So Esther Amalka was the one that said, Lech knos et kol ha-Yehudim. I know, you think there's no Beis HaMikdash anymore, and therefore you don't think you didn't get together and daven. No, it's not true. Lech knos. Knos lashon knesset. Beit, not knesset, should be a tikkun for the knesset, but you know what I mean, Beit HaKnesset. The place of gathering. What do you do when Jews gather? You daven. Lech knos et kol ha-Yehudim. So the Maharal says like this about our topic of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. And he says this in his Sefer Netzach Yisrael. המהר"ל מסביר ששבטי יהודה ויוסף הם כנגד המוח והלב שני איברים מרכזיים בגוף האדם. The tribes of Yehuda and Yosef correspond to the mind and the heart, two main organs in the body of a person. Yehuda, who keneged hamoach, you should know, I thought he was going to say afuch. But he says Yehuda corresponds to the mind, to the brain. V'hu metzayen et shilton hamochin ve'adat, and he comes to emphasize the governing of the intellect and knowledge. Yosef, who keneged halev, v'hu metzayen et shilton hamidot ve'aregesh, and he comes and specializes in the governing of the emotions. Lachen, Yehuda v'Yosef hem manigei ha'uma ha'yehudit. That's why both Yehuda and Yosef are the leaders of the Jewish people. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. Ulam mishnehem, but from the two, Who did Yaakov Avinu basically say is the Melech? Yehuda, which according to this would mean. So you could see this is a Lubavitcher Sefer, right? ולמשניהם ההנהגה האמיתית שייכת ליהודה, שכן המוח הוא העליון על כל האיברים. The mind, the brain, where the brain rests, it's superior to all other limbs. Now, he doesn't just mean because it's physically higher than where the heart is situated. But he means in Lubavitch, you all know, the way the Alter Rebbe brings it down, is that of course the heart feels, and that always gives you a notion of, it makes you feel like this must be right. Why? Because it feels right. But the Torah already told us, "V'lo taturu acharei levavchem." The heart can make you feel a lot of things, and it can convince you of a lot of different things. I have to tell you something wild. Please mochel me. I'm already saying it now. I would not only because it's a woman's shear, but it hits me so deep. One of my father's friends was the very wild guy, divorced guy, jolly guy, not politically correct at all. And after my bar mitzvah, he said, I want to give you the greatest lesson in life. He said, come, let's go on a ride together. So we went on a ride, and he basically told me, I have nowhere to take you, I just want to tell you one thing. He said to me, like, I couldn't believe it. He said, the greatest lesson I'm going to give you is that I could take you right now, chas v'sholem, to a
Okay, we got it. We got it.
right? And you will walk out of here convinced with all your heart and soul that someone really loves you. I said, and then we started driving home. I said, what kind of wacky, kind of present is this? He said, one day you'll understand that what I told you will be one of the greatest guidelines for your life. So when I met with him later on, I said to him, I think I understand what you were trying to tell me. He said, you have to understand, I'm a person that mamish fell in that inyan, where I was convinced, because it felt so right, in a certain inyan, that it must be the truth. But there's a reason why the mind is higher than where the heart is. So we see this throughout our lives, that a lot of things feel right. But sometimes that feeling right, forget the example I gave you right now. Millions of different examples. No, it feels so good. It feels so good, but we have das, meaning we have a world of das, where that's where we're supposed to be truly operating from and governing over. The reason why I thought he was going to say that Yehuda was heart and Yosef was moach is because if there's anyone that you would say probably fell in the areas or was more connected with heart and feelings was probably Yehuda, and Yosef is the brain behind the Egyptian economy. That's why I was a little bit confused over here. But there's a way to understand it differently, like he's showing us over here. And he says, between the two, the moach, again, the language of the Rebbe Rashab, moach shalit ala lev. You're going to have a heart. You're going to feel things. But the mind needs to direct what you're feeling in order to make sure that it feels the right things. Doesn't mean turn off the emotion button. No, Hashem created us with emotions. But direct it to the right place. And then everyone wins. And that's Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, according to how he's explaining it over here. Again, אולם משניהם ההנהגה האמיתית שייכת ליהודה, שכן המוח הוא העליון על כל האיברים, וכולם צריכים להיות מונהגים על ידו. הנהגתו של יוסף מציינת מצב נחות, כאשר עם ישראל אינו בשל ואינו ראוי להנהגה העליונה של יהודה. He's saying when Yosef HaTzadik, not Yosef HaTzadik, but the Hanhaga of Yosef, when Mashiach ben Yosef is leading the show, that's showing that we're actually in a lower state. Kasher Am Yisrael Eino Bashel, we're not ready, we're not ripe yet. We're not ready, we're not properly suitable for Hanaga Yonah Shel Yehuda, for Yehuda to come and lead us. V'hu nimshach achar halev, and we're drawn only to heart. V'lo achar hamoach Yehuda. So I want to say something very controversial. You thought what I said before was controversial. I want to say that Jonathan Pollard said one of the smartest things that would have never happened, but he said it. He said that, you know what we should have done on October 8th? We should have taken all the hostage families and seclude them and put them, mamish, like, put them somewhere else. Not in a bad way, God forbid. Give them everything in the world and take care of business. Because what? Of course we're going to be drawn to the heart. But the manner that we've been operating has nothing to do with head. Emotions. Emotions have been running this war. That's not how you fight a war. There's no way in the world, and in everything we've been through, we're a year and a half plus into this, and it's emotions that have been driving us. It's not moach. It's not mochin. And I would never, chas v'shalom, listen, be very clear. I would never tell that to anyone that's fighting for their child, because chas v'shalom, to put myself in their shoes, I'd probably be crazier. I would do more.